Listening carefully and repeating immediately is the cornerstone of the shadowing technique, and it plays a crucial role in improving English fluency. This key emphasizes active engagement with the language rather than passive hearing. When learners listen attentively to a native speaker, they absorb not just the words, but also the natural flow, rhythm, and pronunciation. By repeating immediately, the learner reinforces the connection between hearing and speaking, training the brain to respond quickly and naturally. This method helps reduce the time taken to translate thoughts from one's native language into English because the brain becomes accustomed to the sounds and structures of English. Through constant exposure and practice, the act of listening carefully requires focused attention. It is not enough to play an audio track or watch a video while multitasking, as the subtle nuances of pronunciation, stress, and intonation can be easily missed. Learners must concentrate on every syllable, paying attention to how words are linked together in natural speech. By doing this, they develop an ear for authentic English sounds, which is essential for speaking fluently. Immediate repetition, on the other hand, ensures that the knowledge is actively used rather than passively stored. When a learner repeats what they hear right away, it creates a feedback loop where listening informs speaking, and speaking reinforces listening. Over time, this loop strengthens memory retention and enhances the ability to reproduce complex sentences accurately. Moreover, this key point helps with pronunciation and accent development. Many learners struggle with English because they pronounce words incorrectly or with unnatural stress patterns. By carefully listening and imitating a native speaker, learners internalize proper pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. This practice also trains the vocal muscles to produce sounds that may not exist in the learner's native language. Consistent immediate repetition builds both confidence and clarity as the learner begins to sound more natural and understandable. Another important aspect is that listening and repeating immediately also improves comprehension. As learners shadow audio, they start recognizing common phrases and sentence structures, which allows them to understand spoken English more quickly. This simultaneous practice of listening and speaking strengthens overall communication skills, because the learner is constantly engaging with the language in real time, mimicking the intonation and accent of native speakers is one of the most effective ways to develop natural English fluency. Intonation refers to the rise and fall of the voice when speaking, which gives meaning, emotion, and rhythm to language, while accent is the distinctive way words are pronounced in a particular region or by a particular group. When learners focus on copying these aspects, they begin to sound more like native speakers, which enhances both comprehension and confidence in conversations. This practice goes beyond simply pronouncing words correctly. It involves capturing the melody, pace, and musicality of English, which are essential for expressing ideas clearly and naturally. To mimic intonation effectively, learners must first listen carefully to how sentences are spoken, noting which words are stressed and which are softer. English is a stress-timed language, meaning some syllables are emphasized more than others, creating a rhythm that is often very different from other languages. By imitating these patterns, learners can produce speech that feels fluid and natural, rather than choppy or mechanical. Practicing with short audio clips, dialogues, or even songs allows learners to internalize these patterns. Repeating immediately after listening helps reinforce correct stress placement and melodic contours, training the brain and vocal muscles simultaneously. Accent imitation also plays a significant role in being understood by native speakers. Learners often struggle with certain vowel or consonant sounds that are absent in their first language. By paying attention to the exact way native speakers shape their mouths and produce sounds, learners can gradually reduce their own accent barriers. Shadowing exercises, where learners speak along with native audio, provide a perfect opportunity to fine-tune both accent and pronunciation. The combination of listening, mimicking, and immediate repetition ensures that learners are not only hearing correct sounds, but actively producing them, which accelerates the learning process. Another Important benefit of mimicking intonation and accent is the development of natural speech patterns. English sentences often rise and fall in pitch to indicate questions, emphasis, or emotion. Learners who ignore these patterns may sound monotone or unnatural, even if their grammar and vocabulary are perfect. By shadowing native speakers and paying attention to intonation, learners start producing sentences with the correct emotional tone and emphasis, making conversations more engaging and easier to follow. This practice also improves comprehension, because understanding intonation helps learners grasp implied meanings such as sarcasm, excitement, or uncertainty, which are often conveyed more through tone than through words. Consistent daily practice is one of the most critical elements in mastering English fluency through shadowing techniques. Learning a language is not a one-time effort, but a continuous process that requires regular engagement. Practicing every day, even for a short period, ensures that the brain stays immersed in English and steadily improves listening, pronunciation, and speaking skills. When learners engage with English on a daily basis, their brains start forming neural connections that make language processing faster and more automatic. This repetition strengthens memory retention, making it easier to recall vocabulary, sentence structures, and pronunciation patterns without hesitation. The key to daily practice is creating a routine that fits naturally into one's schedule. Even spending 15 to 20 minutes on shadowing exercises each day can have a significant impact over time. The important aspect is consistency rather than duration. Short, focused sessions repeated every day are far more effective than occasional long sessions. During these daily practices, learners can use a variety of materials such as podcasts, dialogues, news clips, or audiobooks. The variety keeps the practice engaging while exposing learners to different accents, speeds, and vocabulary, which enhances overall comprehension and adaptability in real-life conversations. Daily practice also helps learners overcome the fear of speaking. Many language learners hesitate to speak because they are worried about making mistakes or sounding unnatural. By practicing consistently, learners gradually build confidence in their speaking abilities. Shadowing allows learners to experiment with pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm in a low-pressure environment. As the brain becomes accustomed to hearing and producing English every day, speaking in real-life situations becomes more natural and hesitation decreases. This habit of consistent practice turns learning into a daily habit rather than a sporadic task, making fluency an inevitable result of persistence. Another advantage of practicing every day is the gradual improvement of listening skills. The more frequently learners expose themselves to spoken English, the faster they can recognize and understand words and phrases in different contexts. Daily shadowing trains the ear to detect subtle differences in pronunciation, rhythm, and stress, which are often missed in occasional practice. This constant engagement also helps learners internalize correct grammar patterns and common expressions, allowing them to respond quickly and naturally in conversations. By maintaining daily practice, learners experience continuous progress, which motivates them to continue and reinforces the habit of using English as an active part of their lives. Starting with simple sentences and gradually moving to complex ones is an essential strategy in mastering English fluency through shadowing. Learning a language can feel overwhelming if learners try to tackle long or complicated sentences from the beginning. By starting small, learners build a strong foundation of basic vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, which makes it easier to handle more complex structures later. Simple sentences allow learners to focus on the core elements of shadowing, such as listening carefully, repeating accurately, and mimicking intonation, without being distracted or confused by unfamiliar words or grammar patterns. This step-by-step approach ensures steady progress and prevents frustration that often comes with trying to absorb too much at once. When learners begin with short sentences, they can pay close attention to each word, its pronunciation, and the way it connects to others in the sentence. This helps them develop a natural rhythm and internalize proper sentence structures. For example, starting with basic statements like "I like coffee" or "she is reading a book" allows learners to repeat the audio accurately and gradually build confidence. As their listening and speaking skills improve, they can move on to slightly longer sentences, such as "I enjoy reading books in the evening because it relaxes me," which introduces new vocabulary, conjunctions, and more intricate grammar patterns. This gradual progression strengthens the learner's ability to comprehend and reproduce English naturally. Progressing to complex sentences also improves critical language skills, such as understanding clause structures, conditional sentences, and advanced vocabulary. By practicing longer sentences with multiple ideas, learners train their brains to process English at a faster pace. This helps them keep up with native speakers in real conversations and reduces the need to pause and think while speaking. Shadowing. Longer sentences also challenges learners to maintain correct intonation, stress, and rhythm over extended speech, which is vital for sounding fluent and natural. Over time, learners become capable of handling paragraphs and full conversations without difficulty, having gradually internalized the patterns and flow of English through consistent practice. Another benefit of starting simple and moving to complex sentences is that it builds confidence. Beginners often feel overwhelmed when faced with difficult texts or fast conversations. But by mastering short sentences first, they develop a sense of achievement that motivates them to tackle more challenging material. This approach also allows learners to identify gaps in their vocabulary or pronunciation and work on them systematically. The gradual increase in difficulty ensures that learners are continuously challenged, yet not frustrated, enabling steady progress in both comprehension and spoken fluency. Recording yourself to track and correct mistakes is an extremely valuable technique for improving English fluency through shadowing. Many learners practice speaking but are unaware of subtle errors in pronunciation, intonation, or rhythm because they cannot hear themselves objectively while speaking. By recording shadowing sessions, learners can play back their speech and compare it directly with the native speaker's audio. This allows them to identify areas where they may mispronounce words, stress the wrong syllables, or fail to mimic the natural rhythm of English. Self-recording creates an opportunity for precise and focused self-assessment, which is crucial for making noticeable improvements over time. Listening to recordings helps learners detect patterns in their mistakes. For example, they might notice that certain vowel sounds are consistently pronounced incorrectly, or that they tend to rush through longer sentences, losing clarity. By observing these recurring issues, learners can take targeted action, such as practicing specific sounds or slowing down their speech to maintain accuracy. This feedback loop is far more effective than practicing blindly because it transforms passive practice into active, informed learning. Over time, recording oneself not only improves pronunciation and intonation, but also strengthens overall speaking confidence, as learners can monitor their progress and witness tangible improvement. Another advantage of self-recording is that it enables learners to track incremental growth. English fluency is achieved gradually, and progress can sometimes feel slow or invisible. By maintaining a collection of recordings over weeks or months, learners can listen back and notice how their pronunciation has become clearer, their speech more fluent, and their intonation more natural. This reflection builds motivation and encourages consistent practice, as learners can see that their efforts are yielding results. Additionally, recording oneself promotes self-awareness of pace and rhythm, allowing learners to adjust speech patterns to better match native speakers. Recording also helps with listening comprehension. When learners compare their recordings to native audio, they become more attuned to subtle differences in sound, stress, and phrasing. This heightened awareness improves both speaking and listening skills simultaneously. The act of listening critically to one's own speech strengthens memory retention, reinforces correct patterns, and reduces reliance on translating from the native language. By systematically recording, analyzing, and correcting mistakes. Learners create a structured approach to self-improvement, turning shadowing into an interactive and highly effective language learning tool * using shadowing. To think in English naturally is one of the most powerful steps in achieving true fluency. Many learners face the challenge of translating thoughts from their native language into English, which slows down speech and often leads to hesitation or awkward phrasing. Shadowing trains the brain to process English directly, allowing learners to respond quickly and naturally in conversations. By repeating sentences immediately after a native speaker, learners internalize vocabulary, grammar structures, and sentence rhythms. Over time, the brain begins to associate English sounds and patterns with meaning automatically, eliminating the need for mental translation and making speaking more fluid and confident. This approach works because constant exposure and active engagement during shadowing help learners internalize the natural flow of the language. Instead of memorizing isolated words, learners start to absorb chunks of language common phrases, collocations, and sentence patterns that they can retrieve instinctively. This chunking process allows for faster sentence construction and more natural speech, as learners no longer have to assemble each word individually. Shadowing also trains the brain to recognize intonation, stress, and rhythm, which are essential for sounding like a native speaker. When learners practice these patterns regularly, thinking in English becomes second nature, and their speech starts to mirror the natural cadence of the language. Another major benefit of thinking in English through shadowing is improved reaction time during conversations. Learners who translate from their native language often pause or hesitate, which can interrupt the flow of communication and lower confidence. Shadowing helps eliminate these delays by training the mind to anticipate language patterns and respond automatically. Over time, learners can participate in conversations effortlessly, formulating ideas directly in English without conscious translation. This practice also strengthens comprehension skills, as the brain becomes adept at processing meaning from context and understanding native speech intuitively. By consistently using shadowing to think in English, learners experience a transformation in their overall communication. Speaking becomes smoother, listening becomes sharper, and the mind begins to embrace English as a living, thinking language rather than a subject to study. The more one practices, the more natural and confident one feels in every conversation, unlocking the ability to express ideas clearly, fluently, and with genuine ease, turning every spoken word into a step closer to mastery.